national intelligence service will further develop science.
Each year we get a new and repetitive entry in the Call of Duty franchise. We get a new Battlefield game every few years, but there's one shooter that isn't getting new releases, and it's just getting DLC and DLC, and it's Rainbow Six Siege. Siege for me was the one and only standalone first-person shooter that for me required skills rather than game-breaking weapons and running around like a teenager hyped up on Mountain Dew and KFC. I'm looking at you, Call of Duty. But for me, Rainbow Six Siege has been slowly moving away from the tactical shooter scenario, if you will, and moving towards, say, a hero shooter like Overwatch. So, what's Rainbow Six Siege like now in 2023, and what's it like if you've never played Siege before, and, well, what's it like if you've been with the series for a while?
Hello.
So for starters, what is Siege? It is a 5-on-5 first-person shooter that, yes, while it is a shooter, it is more tactical and slower than Call of Duty. The general gameplay is that 5 attackers need to defuse a bomb, or capture a control point, or rescue a hostage, while 5 defenders basically need to stop the attacking team. Whether that's by running out the clock or taking out all players on the opposing team. And unlike other shooters, there's no respawning in the middle of the round. So it's 5-on-5, some attack, some defend, and there's no respawns. Immediately, that might turn some players off, as there are some players who are used to rushing in, throwing grenades and getting some quick kills, but hey, don't get me wrong, I understand being a fan of titles like COD, and seeing how much fun Siege can be, picking it up because it looks good and then not enjoying yourself. And hey, each time a new Pokemon game releases, I play it, only to find myself getting bored with it quicker than playing with a cup and ball.
No, let me try the cup and ball. Get your own! Come on, don't be a cup and ball hog. Hey!
Anyways, getting back to this Rainbow Six Siege, is it good? Yes, it is a great game. It is hard for new players to start, but you learn so much from playing Siege that it transfers a bit to other shooters, and I'll touch back on that a bit later. Returning to gameplay though, rather than playing as a generic military character with whatever weapons you want, you play as characters or operators with special abilities and gadgets similar to that of Overwatch, but well, Rainbow Six released well before Overwatch was ever a thing. Attackers all have abilities generally based around breaching through fortifications, taking out defenders' gadgets or disabling gadgets, or flushing anyone out from a camping spot.
Killer, what the bitch? It's counted!
Attackers generally have medium to long range weapons like assault rifles or some ranged shotguns, and some attackers actually have sniper rifles. Now, defenders, the whole objective is to, well, defend. Their gadgets and abilities can be explosive traps and bear traps and bulletproof barricades and things that can be placed on windows and doorways. Even a little router jammer that will jam any attacker's electrical items like drones or electrically activated gadgets. Speaking of which, the defenders get a small amount of time at the start of each round to prepare their defenses. Defenders can set up their traps, they can reinforce plaster walls with bulletproof walls that go over the plaster to stop attackers from popping holes in the wall, and they can set up their gadgets during this time. However, attackers have the drone phase. While the defenders are fortifying themselves, each attacker has a drone that they can use to scope out the map to find out what room the defenders are in and what characters are being used on the defending team, which then links back to what abilities, gadgets or weapons you need to look out for when you are attacking.
Let's get 'em!
From there, round starts, attackers and defenders face off. Now, depending on what game type you're playing will determine the objective. If you're playing Bomb, you don't need to eliminate the entire enemy team to win, but that is one way to win any game mode in Siege.
Looks like that guy just killed you.
Hello.
One attacker will start with a diffuser to defuse the bomb, which if they deploy it in the same room as the bomb, it will disable the bomb after a short period of time. It's pretty simple. If the attackers take out all the attackers, defenders win. If attackers take out all of the defenders, the attackers win. However, if the attackers deploy the diffuser when playing Bomb and all attackers die, there is a chance the attackers can win if the diffuser defuses the bomb and it isn't destroyed. If you're playing Capture the Objective, it's basically, say, a little bit like King of the Hill, and no, not that one.
Quit screwing around with my mower. You've got to be kidding.
I don't kid about my mower. Now get inside and start massaging my wife.
Defenders need to defend the room, attackers need to capture the room. And you can't capture the room if there are attackers and defenders both occupying the room at the same time. The final major game mode is hostage, and it's either defeat all defenders or attackers, or the attackers grab the hostage and take them outside to a safe zone, and it's game over.
Meg's our daughter.
Siege's core gameplay, pretty simple, and it's a bit like, say, Overwatch. But again, Rainbow Six Siege came first. But there's attackers, defenders. Each character has their own special, unique abilities and customizable weapons, and I'll get to that in a moment too. And some characters work really well with others. For example, Castle is a defender who uses bulletproof barricades over windows and doors, and if you match him with, say, Mute, whose special gadget is to put down mute jammers, which disable electronic devices like remote explosives. So, depending on what room you're in, and what attackers the opposing team has, you might completely close off access points for attackers if you put down a bulletproof barricade and then a mute jammer next to it, so they have to use an attacker like, say, Sledge to break open that wall.
Here's Johnny.
Gunplay 2, it's incredibly realistic compared to other shooters. If you've got a duel against another operator, you both got the same weapons. If he sprays you with 5 bullets and you get one good shot off in the head, it's game over. Doesn't matter. Siege has always gotten that right. A headshot is a headshot. When you look at Call of Duty or other multiple shooters, headshots might just say like 80% damage, but here in Siege it's game over, and that's something I've always loved about Rainbow Six Siege. And that's where Siege's core gameplay starts to move away from every other shooter. I've got a mate who loves shooters, and each year he pesters me to get the new entry in Call of Duty, and we play Call of Duty and we drink whiskey and we have a laugh, but I've gotten him to try Siege and he rages hard. And for that reason alone, Siege is damn hard, and if you've stopped playing Siege for a while, you've forgotten how to play it, and you return to Siege after a hot minute and the maps have been updated, it is a bit of a system shock to come back to Siege. Sure, it can be frustrating when you boot up the game and you get no kills, and you get killed near immediately, but each time you die in Siege, you learn from it. If you got killed as soon as you walked around a certain corner, okay, find a different way to approach that room or enter that room. If you get spawn killed as soon as the round starts, okay, keep an eye on the windows in that area if you spawn in that area. If you get killed running downstairs, well, don't run, because running makes a lot of noise. But well, you might know a load about Siege already, so what's the game like now? Well, what Ubisoft does rather than releasing new entries in the series is it releases new operators, new maps, and updates to maps and gameplay changes. We've had some great operators released over time, like Frost, the first DLC defender we ever got, who drops bear traps so unsuspecting attackers might, say, jump through a window and land straight in them. Or Azami, a relatively new defending operator that throws special dagger-like weapons to create temporary bullet sponge-like shields that can be used to block drone holes or block a vantage or peeking points, and generally provide decent cover to some open areas. However, there have been a fair few operators that's been a bit questionable, to say the least, like the attacker Grim, who fires robotic bees from a launcher that detects defenders.
What's this? An overabundance of bees in the workplace?
Or Oryx, who I call the Kool-Aid Man, who is a defender that can run through non-reinforced walls.
Sometimes my genius it's almost frightening.
Defending is all about holding a point and defending, and rushing through a non-reinforced wall seems kinda pointless. My point is that there are some operators that have released that seem to have very little thought put into how their gadget works or how the operator works for the overall game. There have also been some changes to the core game that just haven't sat right with me, and in my opinion, break the game. Now, when Siege first released, you picked your operators and you started defending an area, or you started droning out to find out what defenders the enemy team had, and you had to adapt to what they had. The defending enemy team might be using a mute, and if you don't have a Thatcher to combat that, well then you're gonna have to find another way around that. If the attacking team didn't pick a hard breacher, well then you're gonna have to go through doors and windows to get into the site. Now, however, though, during the drone phase for the attacking team, if you notice that the defenders have a mute and that you don't have a hard breacher, you can change your operator before the round starts, completely eliminating the challenge of not having the relevant operators selected for that round.
I'm not saying you should do that. No, you shouldn't. I'm just saying you can do it.
So, from my previous example where I had, say, Castle and Mute working together to block out breaching points and disable electrical gadgets, well, previously, if you saw the defenders doing this, you needed to adapt to that round and pray that someone picked Sledge or Thatcher on your team. Or you picked new attackers the next round, and you hoped that the defenders used the same strategy. Now in Siege though, if you see this, the attackers can simply switch what operators they want to use if they're in the drone phase, which kinda breaks the game. It also works as a bit of a negative too against the defenders, because the defending team might have a fantastic setup that say works well against hard breaches with Mute and Bandit being able to block walls, and if the attacking team change the operators to completely own the opposing defending team, they're on a bit of a back foot because all of their gadgets might be useless to the new attacking operators that they've just changed out during the drone phase. The option to change attacking operators after the round has started is a bit like playing a sports game against a friend and they swap teams mid-match, so instead of losing, they're immediately winning.
This is bullshit. Alright, take it easy, man. Every time's different cards, he still wins.
So besides operators that are as useful as a condom at a baptism and being able to change your operator when you realise the offending team poses a threat to you, how is Siege in 2023? Well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I feel like Siege started as a tactical shooter, and now it's being catered to the Pro League players, and changing what Siege used to be a bit more accessible. Before I get into it, there is nothing wrong with making a game more accessible. New players wanting to check out any game should be able to, and no one should be gatekeeping a title or a game or a series. If you want to play Resident Evil on the easiest mode, knock yourself out in my opinion. But I feel Siege has updated some of its mechanics here and there to make the game easier rather than making the players learn from mistakes and dying. For instance, they've removed dead bodies from the game now. Previously, when you or anyone died, their body would stay there. And if you were sneaky, you could hide traps or you could hide near a dead body and try and blend in. Where now, after basically a second or two, the body disappears. Now, I know a lot of people used to get upset when traps were placed next to dead bodies, or when attackers or defenders would prone next to dead bodies so they could blend in, but that just cements for players not to rush past a dead body or assume that the area is safe. It's Siege. Unless you've completely cleared a room and the corridor that you came from has friendlies in it, never assume the area in front of you is safe, especially if there's a Capcan, a Frost, or a Thorn played on the defending team.
One friendly operator remaining.
I found too when Siege released a really good operator, which can be a bit 50-50 nowadays, but when Siege does release a really good operator, the Pro League complain about the new operator being too overpowered and they get drastically nerfed. For example, Melusi was fantastic. Her gadget would slow down operators' movement speeds when they were in the gadget's field, and the device was bulletproof, so it needed to be either meleeed or destroyed with explosives. Melusi also had a decent weapon, so to combat her, you either wanted Thatcher, as an EMP grenade would disable the device, plus Thatcher is generally pretty damn useful. But people complained she got a massive nerf. They changed her weapons, and then they made Melusi's gadget no longer bulletproof.
Please don't cry like that. Please don't, Brennan.
But there have been some good things that the developers have done. One of which is the shooting range, where you can take any operator and test out their recoils, their sights, and set up weapons however you want. Now sure, there's 1001 videos online about what attachments and what loadouts are best, but that could be for what's best for that particular person. For me, I like playing with a reflex sight that I can see around my surroundings a bit better and I'm not tunneling down a sight. But I know a couple of friends who I play Siege with and they absolutely hate that sight. So being able to go into the shooting range and try out everything for yourself rather than testing it against other players in, quick match is a really good idea. Siege is also constantly being worked on and updated, and if you want to watch any Siege esports events, you can see how easy it is to get involved, even as a viewer. We're in year 8 of Siege at the moment, and we've gotten a heap of new operators with more on the way. We got reworks to the reloading system, reworks to operators, one of which we're getting an update to Frost.
Fuck!
But you can now also report unsportsmanlike conduct, basically griefers or smurfs, and it affects their reputation, which sorta helps when dealing with the issue of smurfs. people who are so good at the game, they buy a second copy, they start at level 1, and they just grief new players. But look, playing any first-person shooter online, especially a PvP one, you'll find toxicity just like you'll find alcohol inside a bottle of vodka.
Let me run that back for you.
But the core gameplay of Siege can easily migrate over to other shooters too. If you're a fan of Call of Duty or Battlefield and you like to sit yourself in a vantage point and use a sniper rifle all day, Siege basically teaches you, yeah, you can do this, especially if you're playing as Glaz or Carly, but Siege also teaches you not to just sit in one spot. And yeah, looking through a sniper scope and getting some kills is great, but it also gives you some pretty big blinders to anything around you. If you're defending a spot, you don't just sit in one spot, have an escape plan or two. Have some defensive setups around you so that if something like a claymore or a Kapkan trap goes off, you know that someone's coming from a certain direction, and that direction is now more exposed. Most importantly, Siege teaches you to check every corner of a room, as you never know if someone is hiding in the dark or peeking through a small gap. But Dudi, hurry up and answer the question, what is Siege like now in 2023? I'm sorry, but that's the question I've been trying to provide you with a bit of an answer for.
So you're not allowed
yes,
to drink in
Siege
here.
is fun. Yes, the gunplay is tight and realistic compared to other shooters. But sometimes I feel like Siege is moving towards the gameplay of Overwatch, giving us characters that make no sense, but they look cool for no reason. Rather than thinking of creative operators that can provide a challenge to either attackers or defenders to prepare against, it feels like we're getting operators with useless abilities, like Senz or Grim. But again, it is still a fun game. It is still better than the yearly release that Call of Duty has given us. So, should you play Siege? In my opinion, yes. Currently Siege, the base edition, is around $30 at least on Steam, and there's a load of other ways to waste $30. It could be on a shit pizza, it could be on a random bottle of whiskey that shouldn't touch your skin, or it could be on a piece of George Russell merchandise. But whether you've never played Rainbow Six Siege before or you've been playing it since day one, always remember to play with each other and play with yourself.